Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining me today for this online workshop, all things about writing grants and writing successful grants. At the end of the day, we want that funding in our bank accounts for our organizations. And today I'm going to take you through the 7 steps of what I do with my clients so that we can get that big ticket approval from those funding agencies for our businesses, our organizations, our not-for-profits, or our community groups. So thank you for joining me today. And if you're watching the recording, hello as well. There are some links that will be shared and everything will be sent to you again tomorrow. And so you'll have them all in your inbox as well. So in case you miss anything today, you'll be able to either rewatch the recording or click on those links that you may have missed. So I just want to start with that. If you do have any questions for those that are on live, please pop them into the chat and I will answer them as we go. Otherwise, let's make a start. Who here is a small business owner? Pop up your hand if you are. Yes. And who here is already too busy? Yes, there's a few hands popping up. And who feels like they just wear all the hats in their business or organization? Yes, there's a few. Now, when it comes to grants, I find that a lot of people just don't have the time, don't have the energy. It feels way too overwhelming. And with everything else going on, it's the thing that becomes the bottom of the pile or just never gets done. Or we've missed the deadline, or we thought about it and then we've gone back to it and found that it's due tomorrow or whatever it might be, and we simply run out of time. And we know in small business that resources and time are our biggest enemy, and we just don't have enough of either. So that's why I'm here today to teach you or take you through my 7 steps of creating successful grant applications in an efficient and effective way that's going to allow you to still do what you need to do in your business, but also be able to create opportunities for your organization so that you can get some of this grant funding to grow and expand your business. And with grants, so many of them have short application periods, sometimes as little as 4 weeks. That isn't long at all, especially if you don't find out about them on the day they're released. It's even shorter. So let's get going. But I do want to start with this question. How much free money are you missing out on in grant opportunities? Now, this might be grant opportunities that you've applied for and missed out. It might be grant programs that you saw and you simply didn't have time to make an application, or grants that you have seen other businesses or organizations be successful in and you knew nothing about. And I know that there's a lot of people in this camp because, again, grants and funding and understanding how the governments work and how all these programs work can just be way too overwhelming. So, and I know that it can feel hard to put an application together, and paperwork and administration and all of that is not everyone's forte as well. So I'm Liz, the efficiency coach and the grants coach of the Grants Club. I'm a grants writer and strategist. So what I'm obsessed with is making sure your business has the best opportunity to be successful. You know how there's never enough hours in the day to get that grant application written, or even think about that project that could help your business to grow and expand. And it just seems way too stressful. Well, what I do is help you and your business to be ready when a grant program is released so that you have the right tools and information at your fingertips to be able to present your business in the best possible way. Now, I want you to think of grant applications a bit like a job application. You normally get one chance to showcase what you're all about. Normally it's on paper, normally it's filling out a form, and it's all a bit boring. So we've really got to know the ins and outs and be prepared to put our best foot forward and showcase us and make sure they know that we are the best and that our project is going to have the best outcome. So I always start this with a bit of geeky admission. I do love writing grant applications. For me, they are like writing a strategy. I need to learn about your business, learn where you've been, where you want to go, what the ins and outs are, what makes you guys tick, what projects are going to help. And I need to extract that information out of you to be able to write that application. I did a few years in government. managing grant programs. And so that gave me the insights and opened up my eyes to the fact that these grants even existed, because up until that point, I had no idea. And the truth of the matter is the governments do not advertise these programs very widely, because they know some people will find out about them, there'll be enough applications, and they don't want to create more work for themselves. I'm really proud of my success rate. And the reason why I have a high success rate is because I will be really upfront about how strong your project or your idea is to meet the objectives of that program. Now, every business is different, every project is different, and every grant application is different or program is different. So we need to make sure that we are putting our resources that we know are scarce into the right effort, and making sure that your project is designed in a way that is going to meet those objectives and is going to be closer to getting an approval and a yes. If we're so far off the mark, if we're not in the right ballpark when it comes to budget, they're just too easy to say no to, and we don't want that. So as I've said, and you've probably gathered, grant applications are my thing. So allow me to work in my zone of genius while you continue to work within yours. So I've been doing this online workshop every week or fortnight for the last 2 years. And I have people come and learn new skills, or they enhance their skills that they've already got. And I also have people that come and listen and learn about what is involved in the process, and then think, I've got better things to do. This is not my skill set. Let's work together and you can do most of it, Liz. So I work with all businesses to help them on their way to getting their grants written and to be successful. Now, this is one of my favorite quotes when it comes to grants. Nothing is more expensive than a missed opportunity. What do I mean by this is we need to be on the lookout for grants, but we also need to be what I call grants ready. If you're not grants ready, it's going to be really hard to create a grant application, plan out your project, and run your business as normal, all in a really short space of time, and do a really good job. So this is why throughout this whole presentation today, I talk about being grants ready. That's going to be different for every business. So I want you to think about, well, what do I need to do as my business? What are my projects that I could apply for a grant for? What's in my growth plan and expansion plans? What resources do I have? What grants have I got before? And have I got all my ducks in a row when it comes to documentation as well? My guarantee to you today is at the end of this workshop, you'll have 7 clear steps to following when writing grant applications. And this is the exact process that I follow with my own clients. Success. What does success mean to you? Now, this is going to mean different things to different people, and it's all in the preparation for a great result. So when it comes to grant funding, normally it's to grow something, improve something, make something better, or have a greater impact on the community, the wider business network. So we need to be thinking about, well, we want to grow, but what does that look like to our business? And we want to be able to thrive. So this can also mean efficiencies, but what does success mean to you? And for a lot of my clients that I've worked with over the years, this doesn't necessarily mean going bigger. It actually means sometimes being more efficient, having more time with their family, but still doing the same output with less. And sometimes they've bought equipment, they've hired people, they've run projects through grants that have allowed them to accelerate their growth plans. So we need to get organized when it comes to grants. And when a grant program comes out, we need to get all the information. And again, this can be overwhelming. I had a client ring the other day and she was like, are we even eligible? And we went through it and I read the first paragraph and said, yes, you are. And then read further down and actually, no, you're not, because there was another criteria piece. So, if they'd only read the first paragraph, and this was a 20-page document. So, getting all the information, reading the criteria, checking that you are eligible in the very first place. And I talk about being eligible as an organization and eligible as a project as well. Does your project fit in the parameters of what the government program are trying to achieve? You've got to think of it that they're outsourcing this. They're basically giving you money to do something that they think we can do a better job at, which is great, but we need to make sure we're aligned. But also here we need to know what our project is and how we're going to deliver this project. And what is that outline? What are we trying to achieve? And does it line up with what they want us to do? And what I do here is I create the application form into a Word document. I use this as my working document with the client. And I can't stress this enough. Do not add into the portal directly and not have it saved anywhere else, because I've heard too many bad stories about people not saving, losing work, losing the password to the portals to log into. So putting it into a Word document means you can share it amongst your staff or whoever, but also you can brainstorm and then distill it down, and you've got a copy of it and keep saving. And I just don't rely on the portal itself. Then what happens at the end when we're ready to submit, we copy and paste from the Word document right at the very end and press submit. The next step is all about planning out what needs to be done. So again, taking that Word document, turning it into a numbered checklist of all the components that are required for this grant application. There'll be information like your business information, your ABN, your address, your contact information. There'll be information about what your business does. What is this project summary, and all the other questions that you need to answer. Now, I don't go into it in this workshop because they are all different, but you need to be aware. You need to look at that application form really early on to see, well, what information are they asking us? Do I have that right now? And if not, how do I get it? Last year, I had a client who missed out on applying for a $300,000 grant because it was due in 2 weeks' time and she didn't have a business plan. She didn't have a business plan that could be attached to the grant application. We just simply did not have enough time. So this is why I can't stress enough around being grants ready. And a business plan is a good example of one. We should be using business plans as a guide anyway for our business, but also there's no stipulation whether that needs to be 2 pages or 10 pages. So something is better than nothing, but this client had absolutely nothing. So, just another example of missing that opportunity. Bringing your team together and having a kickoff meeting. So working out who is going to be involved in this, who's going to help you out, and making sure you're clear about who's got the skills to be able to do this. And making sure that they've had experience or they know the project and the business inside out. And it doesn't have to be me, but I do stress that you need to find someone who has the skills and knowledge to help you through the process, that knows what they're doing, and then they're not just writers. Grant writing is a bit of a skill in itself, and you need to work with someone that's had the success and is going to work for you as a business and be just as excited about this project as you are, so that they can really get the essence into your application. And I always plan out at this point to submit it 1 or 2 days before the deadline. With all the technology and the portals, and it's all great, but we don't want to be planning it to the 11th hour and something going wrong. I always encourage everyone to always submit their grants during business hours, so that if something does go wrong, we can at least call or email and maybe get a response. But if we're doing that at 11 p.m. and it's due at 11:59, we haven't got any hope of recalling that. And also, nowadays, they will not accept anything by email either. So just be aware of that. It all has to be done through the portal. Now, step 3, this is what I do, and it's quite detailed, but it needs to be. This is what I do for success, and it keeps everyone on track throughout this entire process. So I would turn the grant writing process into a separate project within your business. And how is this project going to happen? So if you were to get the funds, one, you need to work out what you're going to spend the money on, but how is it going to happen? Who's going to be involved in the project? Allocating the tasks and actions. And as I said, costs involved. Every grant application, we are applying for funding. We're applying for money. They're going to ask for a budget. And so we need to know what those costs are. Also, some grant applications or grant programs have limits on what we can apply for. So we need to also make sure that we can afford the difference, or that we're not in breach of the criteria with the proposed project that we're planning. Now, the next step is all about your supporting documents. Now, as I've said, every grant program is different. and they all require different things. But so we need to read the grant application, what is required, and be careful around what is mandatory and what is optional. My guidance is that even if it's optional and you had access to that information, I would include it. The more, the better. Because quite often they are quite streamlined about what they are asking and quite tight criteria around. Some will say you can add 8 extra documents of your choice. Some will specify exactly what you need to add, and some will say do not add anything extra to what we've already asked. So again, this is all about an exercise in reading instructions and doing what they say, because as soon as you don't follow what they're asking you to do, you will get a big cross and it'll be all over Red Rover before they've even read your application. And also nowadays in the portals, for the mandatory pieces of supporting documents, if you don't attach a document, you can't actually submit it. So again, something to note there. Letters of support. Now, this is something that always surprises people, or they just aren't aware of that these exist. So a letter of support is a letter from a related organization or someone that is going to benefit from this project going ahead. So it could be another business, it could be a community group, it could be another not-for-profit, depends what it is, but it could be another supplier, a customer, a client, that basically they're saying, please support this project because we will also benefit, or it will benefit the town, or it will have a flow-on effect to more jobs in other areas. This is really just to show that your project that you're applying for isn't just really being selfish and just for your own benefit. It has a greater impact, and that's what the governments and the funding bodies are looking for. What I do for letters of support, I draft the letter, we send it to the people we want to sign it, they put on their letterhead, they send it back to us. Again, we're giving them deadlines. We are making sure it's well before the due date because everyone else is busy. Everyone is busy. But we also want to encourage them to do it, because if we can get 2 or 3 letters of support, that always looks really good on a grant application. Now, getting quotes. Again, you need to do this early on. You need to give a deadline, and you probably need to get a couple of quotes because they might not all get sent through. And this is what I talk about, being grants ready and thinking about your project in advance, because even if it isn't a grants program, you could start planning the project, talking to suppliers, getting quotes, and then further down the track, if you haven't proceeded with it and there is a grant program, you can then go back to those suppliers and say, hey, look, can you just update that quote, put the new date on it, rather than having to start the whole process. I've heard of businesses saying, oh, we need 4 days to do a quote. So again, if you're thinking about having 3 or 4 weeks, they're taking 4 days, they need a whole lot of information, whatever it might be. We need to front end that stuff as much as possible. Financial reports, so making sure your financials are up to date. Sometimes, especially if it's a grant more than $50,000 here in Australia, you normally have to submit last year's financials. But also you need your financial reports to be up to date for another reason, because you need to know whether you can afford the shortfall. So say you had a $30,000 project, we can only apply for $20,000. We need $10,000. So can we afford it, or is this project going to cripple us? And also due to the timing of grants, normally there's anywhere between 2 or 3 months between submitting it and then us finding out the outcome. So again, you might say, well, actually in 3 months' time, if I'm really careful with my money, we can save that $10,000 if we're successful. You might also find, actually, if we were really tight with our money, we could save the whole $30,000 and do it by ourselves and not have to wait for a grant. Wouldn't that be great? So again, all of these things are intertwined. It's all about getting grants ready, but having your financials up to date is really important. And as a chartered accountant that I am, I cannot stress it enough. So many people, because if there's an overrun on your project, you've got to cover it. So, we need to make sure that, yes, grants can be seen as free money, but there's also things that the grant might not cover because they're excluded expenditure, but there might be components of projects that we still need to include, and we're going to have to cover that ourselves. So really, really important that we know that. And at this point, this is all about getting shit done. I don't actually do anything on the grant apart from helping the client get to this point with the information, and then we move on to the next step. And you might be guessing, well, hang on, we're not even at the next step. And the next step is writing. So step 5 out of 7 is writing, because we need to do all of that work before we even start writing. And yes, we can scribble down ideas and draft things and all that kind of stuff, but it's when we've got all that, we've got the quotes, we've done our risk management, we've got our letters of support, so that we can write a really comprehensive response and including all components of our project into our written response. So this is why I leave it to this point. And then we need to go back to our guidelines, and we need to be addressing that key criteria. So we need to be making sure that we're answering what they are asking. We also need to be looking at what they're going to mark us on. So again, think of an assignment at uni or wherever. What is it, the key components? And quite often they will say these 4 documents are 25% each. And then you've also had to write a whole lot of other stuff. So sometimes the weightings don't necessarily equate to 100%. It'll be more, but we need to look and check, is it on budget? Is it on community benefit? Is it on growth? Is it on employee numbers? All of that stuff. And we need to make sure that our projects align with that. Checking the word and character limits. So back when we've done our application form and our Word document, I make sure I write the word limits right there and then. I normally encourage people to brainstorm as much as possible and then break it down to the word limit, rather than thinking, oh, well, I've only got 150 words, I won't write much. We need to brainstorm to make sure we get all the key information in there, and then pick the bits apart, flick out some grammar, and get down to 150 words so we can get all the information we need in there. Now we're up to nearly the last step, but this is where it becomes really, really important to think, this is a competitive process. We don't know who else is applying. We often don't know how much total funding is available. So if they're giving out $10,000, $20,000 grants, we don't know if they're giving out 10, 20, 100, 50. We have no idea. So we need to absolutely write in a persuasive way. And just like you would in a job application, or maybe not quite so forceful in a job application, but saying, why is my project the best? Why are we the best organization to do this project, to produce these results and these outcomes? And including why your project is the best with the most impact, and linking back to the outcomes and the objectives in the criteria. Reading that criteria is the most important thing you can do. 1, to make sure that you're eligible, and 2, to make sure you're responding in a way and we're answering the questions that are being asked. And making sure we're linking it back to the benefits of the targeted audience as well. So sometimes it'll be growth, sometimes it'll be specific cohorts of the society that needs to impact. So we need to be really honest and using simple language to outline that. And when we're writing this bit, we need to also be mindful of that the people on the panel know nothing about us, nothing about our organization, and nothing about our project. So we need to, if there's a question that says summarize your project, that needs to start with an answer, something like, my project is to purchase a piece of equipment that will enhance our efficiency by X, full stop. I've seen too many grant applications or clients when I've gone through the questions with them and I'm like, well, what would you write? There's been a 500 word limit and they're like, I'll just write 1 sentence. And I'm like, well, that is why we haven't got grants in the past, because we're not giving enough information, and it is not enough. I've also seen other clients where they skip over what the project actually is to purchase because they're so in it and they're so, busy with the business, and they just think that their innate knowledge is known by everybody else. And this is where, if you did work with a grant writer, we can extract that information, because I know nothing. So I'm as good as a panelist to go, well, no, what do you mean by that jargon, that industry level of information? We need to be distilling it back down to simple English, simple language for anyone to understand. And that brings us to step 7, the final step. And I always get someone else to review and read the application. In most instances, this will be the client, because I want them to check that it's factually correct, that what we're projecting, what we're planning to do, the expected outcomes are on par with what they were expecting and what they're signing up for. At the end of the day, this is their application. And also making sure that we've checked the word limits, we've checked the grammar, it makes sense, we haven't left anything out, it all cohesively is brought together and telling a story. A grant application is a story. and then pressing submit. And even I still get nervous pressing submit. I have some clients that will review it and submit themselves. Some they'll say, oh no, I'll check it, but you submit it, you press the button, because we want to make sure you've done it properly. So, but making sure we press submit. 100% of my grant applications have been submitted on time. And this can be a massive project in itself, as I said at the start. And I want you to celebrate the submission of the application and reflecting on the process. And what's really cool about applying for grants sometimes is some of the questions that they're asked, especially about your business, are things that you've just never had to consider in the past. It might be, they might be asking about the last 12 months of achievements, or what have you done the last 5 years, or what are your goals for the future? And having to spell them out can sometimes take a bit of work, because we're just so in the day-to-day running that we haven't allowed ourselves to step back and think about them, and we are forced to do this in some of the grant applications. So that's what I mean by reflecting on the process. And the other thing is, people get spurred on. They do one grant application. So I've got a client where we did their first application together. They were successful, and now they've used that application they got 3 more in the last couple of months, which is really, really exciting. So, using the right language, copying and pasting, being able to talk about the benefits and the outcomes in a way that is conducive with what the government funding body are trying to achieve is how we go. So there we have it, the 7 steps to writing successful grant applications. And, I don't want you to think it is a lot, but I think if it's planned, if we know what we're doing and we break it all down and follow these steps, it's a much simpler process. And I want you to, if you have any questions, pop them into the chat. But if you want to, can you please write in the chat what your biggest takeaway was from today? So, we've gone from being prepared for success and being grants ready, planning out our project, creating and designing our project as the grant application, collating all that supporting documents, writing the application, adding our persuasive and basically pleading with them to say this is why ours is the best project, and then of course reviewing and submitting. So if anyone wants to share their takeaways, that would be great. A lot of people realize that there is a lot, sometimes there can be a lot of supporting documents, and the word limits can catch people out as well, where some questions we probably only want to write 10 words and they're asking for 200. If a word limit is 200, I will write 199. We will absolutely maximize that opportunity to write as much as we possibly can. So yes, Laura, there is total preparation for the grant you want. And we haven't even talked about where to find the grants. This is once we've found them. So, there is a lot to the process. But linking up with your councils, being in a business network, so many people learn about other grants from other businesses. And I'm all about there's enough for everybody, and we're in business to be competitive and to do the best, and so everyone should have the chance to apply for grants if they've got the right project. And every business is different. A grant can come out and some businesses go, you know what, I don't want to do a 50-50 match, or no, I'm not ready for that, or I don't want to apply, and that's fine too. The letters of support is something that a lot of people don't know about. Some grant applications will specifically ask for them, and others will just say you can provide any supporting documents, and they're a good one to add there. So glad that was helpful. And once you've written one letter of support, you can sometimes, there's a couple of ways to do it. You can get the other business to write it to you as the grant applicant to say, dear Laura, I support this project regarding the grant program, blah, 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 and the project name, and then a little bit about the project, and then a little bit about the business and the outcome, and then saying basically please support it and attach it that way. Or you can address it to the government funding body. So either way, they're going to be attached to PDF, so it doesn't really matter. But I want you to think about the types of projects you might apply for grants for, and then think about who could you get two or three letters of support from. Would it be other suppliers? Would it be other organizations in your local area? Who is going to benefit from what you're doing in growing, and think outside the box sometimes as well, because you might just say, well, how's a machine going to help? It's only going to help me, but it might, if you're a cabinet maker, it might mean that you can help local builders and they can be building houses faster and all that kind of stuff. So you do need to sort of think of the chain of supply there, in terms of how those benefits are going to help other organizations or other groups of community. It might be that you help out a local sports club if you've got more time or something like that. In terms of sourcing grants, in Australia, there are a couple of free ones, so it depends what state you're in. So look at your local, if you're in Victoria, Business Victoria, if you're in Queensland Business, if you're in New South Wales, Service New South Wales, sign up for their grant alerts. That's completely free. If you do want to invest a little bit in searching for grants, you can go to the Grants Hub, and they have all the grants there listed, and you just do your search criteria depending on what you're looking for. We do offer an outsourced grant searching function as well, and with that we have some strategic work as well to make sure your grants are ready as well, because we don't want to find them and then not be ready and then just either miss out on doing it or not have enough time. So I will talk about that soon, but those free ones are really good. The Grants Hub is my favorite. You can do a 2-week trial on that one, but again, it's more around getting into the habit or the diligence of looking every week, because grants come up all the time. We don't know when they're coming up. We don't, just because they came out last year doesn't necessarily mean they'll come out this year. So it is world of the unknown, and with changes in government and all that kind of stuff, there's delays all the time. So those are the ones that I would start with. So these are just some of my businesses that I've helped to get grants. And I want you to think to yourself, what is the difference between these businesses receiving grants and your business? And you might know the answer to that. It might be that you're not even looking. It might be that you don't know where to look. It might be that you're just not ready. We do need to be in a growth phase, and we do need to be not at a startup phase. There are startup programs, which are normally accelerated programs, but in terms of starting a business from scratch, the governments aren't really, they're too risky. So there aren't those straight out funding. Another question, which is just lean business plans, smaller grants and more data. Yeah, in terms of the business plan, it's interesting because the government agencies probably aren't even going to look at them. They really just want to make sure that you have one and have something. So I would, and I don't want to be creating work just for the sake of it. So I would be taking a step back, thinking, well, do I have a business plan? Yes or no? And then going through that process properly for your business, but also for a grant application as well. But if you are like, okay, well, we're pretty on track, we don't really need a business plan, that's fine. You can do a pretty lean one. But yeah, they're not going to come back and say, oh, this should be 20 pages and you've only submitted 5. As long as it's got the key components and it shows that growth plan and that project was in there, that's what they're looking for. But it is really a case of having something is better than nothing. We can also help with business plans as well. I do strategy sessions, one-off strategy sessions, where basically at the end of that, we end up with a business plan, because all we are doing is bringing all your ideas and everything you've done into that and producing the document as well. So here's some testimonials from my clients. Sarah and James got a $107,000 grant, and that took their kitchen cabinetry business. They just had like a lead time of like a waiting time of like 6 months. They weren't even taking on new clients because they just couldn't keep up with demand. They got this grant. They've just bought another piece of machinery that's going to make the lead times even quicker so that they can produce even more kitchens, keep up with the demand from the builders and the new builds and the renovations. And that has been really great. Kim and Nat from the Rethink Recycling Co-op, that's who I was talking about before. They just got 3 more grants as well. So I think they're up to like 7 or 8 grants after this initial one that we did together. Because they also got the confidence that they were like, oh, okay, our project is good. What we're trying to do is good, and this is how we can showcase it to the different government agencies. And Ben and Jessie, they took their side hustle to a full-time business with the help of a grant as well. So sometimes it does come down to your confidence. And sometimes people do just need that validation of, am I writing the right thing? What have I left out? Does this make sense? Is this really showcasing my business and project in the best way? And as you can see here, there are a whole heap of different grants for various things. Obviously, during COVID, there was a whole lot of grants and subsidies. And now, grants are becoming few and far between when it comes for businesses because the governments have realized, oh, we spent too much money during COVID and they're really pulling back. So we do have to get creative. Not to say they're not out there, but they're less frequent. So it's even more important to be grants ready when they do come out there. I will also say, make sure you connect with your local council. They have grants from time to time, depending where you live. But also, they will be really good at sharing federal grants as well, because they're like, well, it's not my money, but it's going to impact and help out our local businesses. So again, sign up to their newsletters and even connect with your business concierge or business advisor at the council to say, well, hold on, what kind of opportunities are out there for us? So just going through some other questions that quite often come up. Can you help me with writing grants? Absolutely. We can tailor a response for you. It can be from you writing it and we just review it. We can totally do it for you with your help. And so that's totally fine. We've talked about business plans. Yes, we can write them for you as well. Do it as a strategic process, which again is very similar to a grant application. My success rate is 85%, which I'm pretty proud of. How do I know what I need a grant for? Now, this is where we need to do some strategic work to identify what are those growth projects that could happen in our business that are either going to allow us to employ more staff, produce more, be more efficient. That's what we need to be thinking about. That is totally linked to your growth plans. And if you don't have a growth plan or a business plan, you need to get onto that straight away. So I know that some of you have reached out about working together. So I'm going to share with you now the ways that you can work out where you're sitting when it comes to grants and how ready you are. I have a grants ready quiz that is on my website, but I've also put the links in here as well. So into the chat is the link. Go through that, answer the questions, you'll get a score, and it will give you a wee heads up of where you're at, how much work you've got to do, and how we can then have a chat. Now, because I know that every business is different, every organization is different, every grant program is different, every project is different, and I am redeveloping my website that will basically say, just call me, let's have a chat, because there is no one business that's the same. Everyone's at different stages, everyone's at in different areas, different countries, all that kind of stuff. So I encourage you to use the link that's in the chat to book in a 20-minute call, do the grants quiz, then book in a call with me, and we can totally complimentary, no obligation, and I can determine in that 20 minutes where your business is at when it comes to grants. For some businesses, I'm pretty honest, grants are not the right time for them. So they shouldn't even be looking for them. They've got other things to do to build up first. Or you can book a strategy session with me. So this is where we can develop the core business plan and go through that and streamline your ideas and your plan and create that growth plan. If you're interested in that, just email me. And again, we can jump on a call and sort that out for you. We also have our VIP membership, where we are basically doing the searching for you. We're keeping you up to date, and we are matching the grants with your business. So think of it as an outsourced service. And we also have quarterly masterclasses, other programs that are going to help people to become grants ready. We've got a private Facebook group for learning and asking questions. And you start with a strategy call to see where you're at, what do we need to be doing, and how can we become more grants ready. So that's $3,000 for 12 months or $300 a month to outsource that as well. So the biggest thing about grants is knowing straight away and really early on when they come out, so that we can maximize the time we have available to write them for us. And just head to our website, theefficiencycoach.com.au or grantsclub.com.au, and you'll see the membership thing there as well. You're also invited to join my exclusive Facebook group where I share upcoming workshops and events, and you can connect with other like-minded businesses who are also on that growth trajectory and are looking for grants as well. So click on the, put your phone up to the screen if you want, or there's a link in the chat to join that Facebook group as well. So if you do want to work together, the best thing to do is jump on a 20-minute call with me and we can talk through your situation and see how grants can help you. If no one has any more questions, I'd like to say thank you for joining us today, and hopefully you took away some tips and tricks that help you write grant applications, and just to give you the confidence that, following the process, being prepared, knowing what all the language and all the acronyms are and the terminology is half of it. And sometimes reading through sort of 25 to 40 pages of guidelines can be overwhelming in itself. So as I say, I do love writing grant applications. I do love learning about people's businesses and their strategies. And thank you for joining me today. Thanks, Laura. I will press record.